want to see a fair trial. And so they approached several of us and said, we would like for you to do a serious study of all of the evidence and issue a public report. We're not going to have any part in what you do. Just when you finish, tell us what you found. Now, I have to confess that when I was called and asked if I would take part in the Scholars Commission, I couldn't understand why they were doing this. I said, didn't DNA prove it? Because I'd read in the newspapers that DNA proved it. Nature had published it. I knew Nature. I ended up believing that if the standard for acquitting him was you had to prove he was innocent beyond reasonable doubt, I would not hesitate to say the man is innocent. They didn't have any DNA from Tom Jefferson, so the DNA looks at descendants of Jefferson's cousins, or if you will, his uncle, because it's the same line. And what they found was they tested one male line descendant of Eston Hemings, and they found that was a match with the Jefferson cousins, which led them to believe the odds are at least 99% that A. Jefferson fathered Eston Hemings. Now, A. Jefferson, we have a pool of at least of more than 24 Jefferson males who were in Virginia at the time. There could conceivably have been some slaves who had been fathered by an earlier Jefferson and inherited by Jefferson carrying the same DNA, and there could have been others that we've just lost track of over the years, but we know there were at least 24, and I think that makes the odds statistically of it being Tom Jefferson something like 6%. Is that, I have to do my math, but it's not very high. Now, obviously, many of these people lived far away in other parts of Virginia, but we have very good reason to believe that at least 7 Jefferson males were there when Eston was conceived. That would be Tom Jefferson, his brother Randolph, and Randolph's 5 sons, who range from teenage years to about 27. Remember, Thomas Jefferson is 64 years old when this child is conceived, in an era where most men did not reach the age of 40. So all the test could do was say, you know, Eston's daddy was one of 24 Jeffersons. The people writing about it didn't even know Jefferson had a brother, and they just assumed this must mean Thomas Jefferson, but that's in fact not what it proved. And this story has misled a lot of people. Dr. Gene Foster, a Charlottesville pathologist, University of Virginia faculty member, was very cooperative with us, acknowledged that the DNA tests say nothing about the paternity of any of Sally's other children. One of the sad things is Annette Gordon-Reed and many other scholars say the DNA, in fact, Monticello has done this, DNA proved that the Jefferson family was lying when they passed down the story that Peter and or Samuel Carr had confessed to the paternity of children by Sally Hemings. And it's simply not true. We don't know who fathered the earlier children. When Eston was born, Cindy knows this better than I do, but I think both of the Carr brothers were married, had families of their own. They'd have been much more likely to fool around before they got married. So we've got 2 accounts saying the Carr brothers confessed to this. Both of them in circumstances that suggest they were not intended to be used to mislead future generations. Why? Because they were given in confidence. Henry Randolph said that Jeff Randolph told him that he had confronted the Carr brothers, and they had said that, you know, the old man is being accused of our misdeeds, basically. And Ellen Randolph Coolidge wrote her husband a letter with a bunch of points for why the story couldn't be true to pass on to a man named Bullfinch. And then she put another page on saying, this page is just for your eyes, because my brother would, anyway. And then she went on to say, my brother told me that the Carr brothers confessed. So both of those really are sort of, since they were given under an injunction of secrecy, so to speak, I think they're more likely to be true than if she just said, tell the journalist this to protect Granddad.